My dear brothers and sisters, some people do not damage your life by shouting, attacking, or openly betraying you. They do it quietly through repeated behaviors you keep excusing because you want to believe the best about them. You leave certain conversations feeling drained, confused, guilty, or strangely smaller than before. Yet you keep telling yourself, maybe I am overthinking. Sometimes the warning is not in one dramatic moment, but in a pattern that keeps returning. And if you ignore that pattern long enough, it can begin affecting your peace, your confidence, and even the way you see yourself. There are certain behaviors you must learn to recognize early, because once you see them clearly, you may realize that the problem was never what they said to you openly, it was what they were slowly doing to you underneath the surface. They keep testing how much disrespect you will tolerate. Some people do not begin by treating you badly in an obvious way. They start small, a rude joke, a dismissive comment, a promise they break and then laugh about, a moment where they speak to you in a way that does not sit right in your heart. At first, you may ignore it because you do not want to create tension. You tell yourself, it was nothing. You excuse it because you want peace. But sometimes that first small moment is not random. It is a test. The person is watching what you will accept. If you stay silent every time they cross a line, they learn that the line can be moved. What was once a small insult becomes a regular habit. What was once an occasional rude comment becomes the normal way they speak to you. And because it happened gradually, you may not even notice how much your standards have changed. Respect should not disappear simply because someone has become comfortable with you. Closeness is not permission to humiliate you. Friendship is not permission to mock you. Family ties are not permission to speak to you however they wish. Even in close relationships, dignity still matters. You do not need to become aggressive. You do not need to turn every mistake into a major argument, but you should be able to say calmly, I do not appreciate being spoken to like that. A healthy person may not be perfect, but they will care that they hurt you. They will listen. They may apologize. They may adjust their behavior. But if someone repeatedly crosses the same boundary and then tells you that you are too sensitive, too serious, or unable to take a joke, pay attention. That response tells you something important. The issue is no longer only disrespect, it is also their refusal to care about its effect on you. Sometimes people keep testing because they want to know how much control they can gain. They may interrupt you constantly, dismiss your opinions, speak over you, embarrass you in front of others, or make decisions that affect you without even asking. Each small act sends the same message: your feelings matter less than mine. Do not ignore that pattern. My dear brothers and sisters, kindness does not require you to accept humiliation. Patience does not require you to tolerate repeated disrespect. You can forgive a person and still make it clear that certain behavior is not acceptable. Because when you keep allowing someone to cross your boundaries without consequence, you may eventually teach them that your dignity is negotiable, and it is not. So pay attention to the small things. Not because you are looking for reasons to cut people off, but because repeated small disrespect often reveals how someone truly sees you. The earlier you recognize the pattern, the easier it becomes to protect your peace before disrespect turns into something much deeper. They need access to everything about your life. Some people do not simply want to be close to you. They want to know everything about you. They want to know where you are, who you are speaking to, what you are planning, what you are feeling, what happened in your family, what decisions you are making, and sometimes even things that have nothing to do with them. At first, this may look like care. You may think they are interested in my life because they love me, but there is a difference between genuine concern and a constant need for access. Healthy relationships allow closeness without removing privacy. You should be able to keep certain matters between yourself and Allah. You should be able to have conversations that do not need to be reported to everyone. You should be able to make personal decisions without feeling that you are being interrogated. If someone becomes angry every time you do not tell them every detail, that is something you should notice. Sometimes people ask questions not because they want to help, but because information gives them influence. The more they know, the more they feel they can comment, interfere, judge, or control. They may begin giving opinions on every friendship, every plan, every purchase, every conversation, and every decision. Slowly, you may start feeling that you need their permission for things that never required it in the first place. This can become unhealthy very quickly. A person who truly cares about you should also respect your boundaries. They should understand that trust does not mean unlimited access. Love does not mean ownership. Friendship does not mean entitlement to every private detail of your life. Be especially careful when someone keeps pushing after you have already made it clear that you would rather not discuss something. A respectful person may ask once and then leave it. A controlling person often keeps pressing until you feel guilty for protecting your privacy. You may hear statements like, "Why are you hiding things from me?" Or, "If you trusted me, you would tell me everything." That kind of pressure can make you question yourself even when you have done nothing wrong. Privacy is not dishonesty. You can be honest and still have boundaries. You can love people and still keep certain matters personal. You can care for someone without giving them complete access to your thoughts, your relationships, and your decisions. And remember this, the people who need to know everything are sometimes the same people who later use that information against you. They may repeat private matters, twist your words, or bring up sensitive details during conflict. So do not confuse curiosity with care. A healthy person makes you feel safe enough to share. An unhealthy person makes you feel forced to share. That difference matters. Your life does not need to become an open book for every person who claims to care about you. Some pages belong only to you, and some belong only between you and Allah. They change their personality depending on who is watching. Some people seem like completely different individuals depending on who is in the room. In public, they may be polite, generous, respectful, and full of smiles. They know how to appear kind when others are watching. But in private, their behavior changes. Their tone becomes colder, their patience disappears, and the respect they showed in front of others is suddenly gone. That difference should make you pay attention. A person's real character is not only what they display when they know they are being observed. Character is also how they behave when there is no audience, no praise to gain, and no reputation to protect. Sometimes this type of person becomes very skilled at managing appearances. They may speak beautifully about family, friendship, loyalty, or Deen in front of others, yet the people closest to them experience something very different. They may be supportive in public but dismissive in private. They may praise you in front of others and then criticize you harshly when nobody is around. This creates confusion because you begin wondering which version is real. The truth is that consistency matters. Nobody behaves perfectly all the time, and everyone can have a bad day. But when someone repeatedly changes their personality depending on who is watching, it may show that image matters more to them than sincerity. Be careful with people who are more concerned about looking good than actually being good. They may apologize only when others are present. They may become generous only when someone will notice. They may treat important people with great respect while speaking badly to those they consider less useful. This is not a small matter because it shows that their behavior may depend on what they can gain from the situation. And sometimes you may be the only person who sees the private side. That can make you feel isolated because when you try to explain what is happening, others may say, "But they are always so nice." You begin doubting yourself because everyone else sees the polished version. Do not ignore your experience simply because the person has a good public image. Remain fair. Do not accuse someone based on one moment. Look at patterns. Ask yourself whether the behavior is consistently different in private and whether the same disrespect keeps returning. My dear brothers and sisters, sincerity has a certain stability to it. A sincere person may not be perfect, but they are not constantly changing masks to impress different people. Their kindness is not only for an audience. Their respect does not disappear when the door closes. So watch how someone behaves when there is nothing to perform for. That is often where the truth becomes much easier to see. They keep creating problems so they can stay at the center. Some people seem uncomfortable when everything is peaceful. When there is no conflict, no tension, and no crisis to discuss, they somehow find a way to create one. A small misunderstanding becomes a major issue. An old argument is brought back without any real need. A simple comment is twisted into something much bigger, and before long, everyone around them is emotionally occupied with the problem they created. You may think they are simply sensitive or going through a difficult time, but when this keeps happening, you begin to notice a pattern. Peace does not seem to satisfy them because peace does not place them at the center of everyone's attention. Some people feel important only when others are reacting to them. They may start an argument and then act shocked when people respond. They may spread part of a story, wait for tension to grow, and then position themselves as the person who knows everything. They may create distance between two people and later step in as though they are trying to fix the situation. In this way, they remain involved in every conversation, every disagreement, and every emotional moment. This can become very draining. You begin spending your time calming situations that never needed to become serious. You find yourself explaining what you meant, correcting things you never said, or repairing relationships that were damaged by unnecessary interference. Eventually, the person who creates the disturbance receives more of your attention than the people who bring peace into your life. That imbalance is worth noticing. A healthy person does not need chaos to feel important. They do not create tension just to feel needed. When there is peace, they are comfortable with it. When there is a disagreement, they try to reduce it rather than enlarge it. They do not enjoy watching people become upset with one another. And sometimes the clearest sign is that every situation somehow returns to them. Even when the original problem had nothing to do with them, they find a way to become the victim, the judge, the messenger, or the person everyone must comfort. Do not allow yourself to be pulled into every emotional storm someone creates. You do not have to respond to every accusation. You do not have to participate in every argument. You do not have to choose sides in problems that were manufactured for attention. Sometimes the wisest response is to remain calm, refuse to feed the drama, and step away from conversations that are clearly going nowhere. Protecting your peace does not mean you ignore genuine problems. Real issues should be addressed with honesty and maturity. But there is a difference between solving a real problem and constantly being dragged into unnecessary chaos. So pay attention to the people who make peace feel impossible whenever they are around. Because when someone repeatedly creates disorder just to remain important, the issue is no longer the individual argument. The deeper issue is that they may be using conflict to keep control of the emotional space around them. They punish you for growing beyond the version of you they could control. Sometimes the clearest sign that a relationship was built around control appears when you begin to grow. As long as you were unsure of yourself, easy to influence, constantly seeking approval, or willing to tolerate certain behavior, everything seemed fine. But the moment you became stronger, more disciplined, more private, or more serious about your relationship with Allah, the other person's attitude changed. That change is worth noticing. Some people are comfortable with you only when you remain the version of yourself that makes their life easier. They like you when you say yes quickly. They like you when you explain every decision. They like you when you depend on their opinion. But when you start thinking more clearly, setting boundaries, protecting your time, or refusing what no longer feels right, they may accuse you of changing. You have changed, but not every change is a problem. Growth often looks uncomfortable to people who benefited from your lack of confidence. You may begin saying no to things you once accepted. You may stop sharing every detail of your life. You may choose better company. You may become more careful with your speech, your time, your habits, or your deen. Instead of supporting that progress, certain people may respond with sarcasm, distance, guilt, or criticism. They may say, "You think you are better than us now." They may remind you of who you used to be. They may mock the new boundaries you are trying to protect. Do not let that automatically convince you that you are doing something wrong. Of course, growth should not make you arrogant. Becoming closer to Allah should make you more humble, more patient, and better in character. If your progress is making you harsh or disrespectful, then correct yourself. But if you are simply becoming healthier, wiser, and more responsible, then do not shrink yourself just to keep other people comfortable. A good person does not need you to stay weak in order to feel secure. They can celebrate your progress even if it changes the relationship slightly. They may need time to adjust, but they do not punish you for becoming stronger. They do not try to drag you back into old habits just because the old version of you was easier to manage. And sometimes the punishment is subtle. They may stop inviting you, they may become colder, they may joke about your goals, they may suddenly question every decision you make. The message underneath is the same. Go back to who you were. You do not have to return to an old version of yourself simply because someone else preferred you that way. If Allah is helping you become more disciplined, more aware, more peaceful, and more sincere, protect that growth. Not with arrogance, not with hostility, but with firmness. Because some relationships survive only when you stay small. And when you finally grow, you discover whether the person truly loved you or only loved the version of you they could control. They never let you forget the mistakes you already repented from. Some people do not just remember your past, they keep using it against you. You may have made a mistake, admitted it, regretted it, asked Allah for forgiveness, and genuinely changed, yet they continue bringing it back into every disagreement as though you are still the same person you were before. That can become deeply unhealthy. There is a difference between accountability and humiliation. Accountability helps a person grow. Humiliation keeps a person trapped. If someone keeps reminding you of an old mistake every time they want to weaken your confidence, win an argument, or make you feel small, then the issue is no longer your past. The issue is how they are choosing to use it. My brothers and sisters, sincere tawbah means something. When a person truly turns back to Allah, regrets the wrong, leaves it, and tries to become better, they should not spend the rest of their life feeling as though they are permanently chained to that old version of themselves. Growth requires space. Change requires room. And people who truly care about you should want to see you improve, not keep dragging you backward. Sometimes this behavior appears in subtle ways. A person may joke about an old failure in front of others. They may bring up something private whenever you try to set a boundary. They may say, after what you did before, who are you to speak to? In that moment, your past is being used as a weapon to silence your present. Be careful with that. You can take responsibility for what you did without allowing someone to permanently define you by it. If you harm someone, repair what you can. If you owe an apology, give it. If trust was broken, understand that rebuilding it may take time. But once you are genuinely working to change, you should not accept endless emotional punishment as though suffering forever is the price of repentance. My dear brothers and sisters, Allah opens the door of return because human beings are capable of becoming better. So do not let someone convince you that your worst chapter is your entire story. A healthy person may remember what happened, but they will also notice what has changed. They will not constantly use your weakness to keep power over you. They will not make you feel that you have no right to grow because of something you did years ago. And remember this as well. If you are the one holding someone else's past over their head, be fair. If they have sincerely changed, do not keep reopening what Allah may have helped them leave behind. Because people need correction, yes, but they also need hope. Learn from your past, repair what you can, and continue moving forward with humility. Do not become proud of who you are now, but do not remain imprisoned by who you used to be either. If Allah has allowed you to repent, learn and grow, then do not give another human being the power to keep dragging you back into a version of yourself that you have already left behind. They pull you away from Allah without ever saying it directly. Some people will never tell you openly, leave your faith or stop obeying Allah. They may never say anything that obvious. But their influence can still weaken your relationship with Allah slowly, quietly, and almost invisibly. That is what makes this type of influence dangerous. You may begin missing salah because every time you are with them, prayer becomes inconvenient. You may start delaying acts of worship because they make you feel awkward about taking your deen seriously. You may laugh at things you once found inappropriate simply because everyone around you treats them as normal. You may stop mentioning Allah, stop asking whether something is halal or haram, and stop listening to your conscience because you do not want to appear different. My brothers and sisters, nobody needs to drag you away from Allah in one dramatic moment. Sometimes all it takes is repeated exposure to an environment where obedience slowly begins to feel unnecessary. A person may say, relax, everyone does it. They may tell you, you are taking things too seriously. They may mock your boundaries, your modesty, your salah, your decision to avoid certain places, or your effort to leave a bad habit behind. You may ignore those comments, but if you hear them often enough, they can begin changing the way you think. This is why companionship matters so much. The people around you influence what starts to feel normal. If you spend enough time with people who respect salah, you are more likely to protect it. If you stay close to people who speak about Allah with love and seriousness, that environment strengthens something inside you. But if your circle constantly makes disobedience look harmless and obedience look embarrassing, your heart can slowly become less sensitive. And sometimes the change is not obvious until much later. You look back and realize that you used to pray on time, but now you constantly delay. You used to feel uncomfortable with certain conversations, but now you participate in them. You used to make dua regularly, but your heart has become distracted. You used to care about pleasing Allah, but now you care more about fitting in. That is a serious warning. My dear brothers and sisters, a good friend should not make your deen harder to protect. They do not have to be perfect. They may have their own struggles, but they should not be the reason you keep moving further away from Allah. Even if they are not deeply religious, there should still be basic respect for your faith and your boundaries. Be careful with people who become uncomfortable when you improve spiritually. If you begin praying more consistently and they mock you, notice that. If you stop joining certain behavior and they pressure you to return, notice that. If you become more serious about your relationship with Allah and they act as though your growth is a problem, notice that. Because the people who truly care about you should not feel threatened by your closeness to Allah. And remember, this does not mean you cut everyone off who is imperfect. We are all imperfect. It means you become aware of direction. Ask yourself, when I spend time with this person, where does my heart move? Do you leave feeling more peaceful, more conscious of Allah, and more careful about your choices? Or do you leave feeling spiritually heavy, careless, distracted, and further away from the person you were trying to become? That answer matters. My dear brothers and sisters, protect your heart, because the heart is affected by what surrounds it. Not every bad influence arrives looking dangerous. Sometimes it arrives smiling, joking, and saying, it is not a big deal. So do not judge a relationship only by how much fun you have together. Judge it also by what it is doing to your iman. Because any relationship that repeatedly makes obedience harder, weakens your conscience, and slowly pulls you away from Allah deserves serious attention. The people closest to you should not make you forget your Creator. They should make it easier for you to remember Him. My dear brothers and sisters, protecting yourself from harmful people does not mean becoming harsh, suspicious, or bitter. It means becoming wiser about who you allow close to your heart, your peace, and your faith. You can forgive someone without giving them the same access again. You can wish them well without allowing their behavior to keep damaging you. And you can remain kind while still creating distance where distance is necessary. Pay attention to patterns. Pay attention to how someone affects your character, your confidence, your choices, and your relationship with Allah. Not every person who is close to you is good for you, and not every relationship deserves to continue simply because it has existed for a long time. So keep your heart clean, your boundaries clear, and your trust in Allah strong. Sometimes walking away from the wrong influence is not losing someone, it is finally protecting the person Allah is helping you become.